So, the return trip to Minrathous. It's a little bit more tense than the trip to Weishaupt.
Which, it was pretty tense on the trip to Weishaupt,
Yeah, it was pretty tense
on
the trip to Weishaupt, so somehow, like, it's even tenser, and you're not sure how it manages to be even worse. Couple things you learn about Ren. He doesn't seem to sleep anymore.
Oh, that sucks. That's the worst.
Dear.
Yeah. He has these long lapses of, like, quasi-consciousness, where he just sort of stares at things without really seeing them. It's not sleep, because he's breathing too hard.
Oof.
Another thing you learn about Ren. Cat is nervous around him.
Oh.
Cat is very, very nervous around Ren, which, when Ren is lucid enough to notice that, he seems to not like. And you learn, Sabre, that while he was traveling through Ferelden stopping the Blight, he actually had a Mabari. A Mabari bonded to him, and he doesn't know what happened to it.
Aww.
Oh.
And he seems really disheartened that Cat doesn't like him anymore. All he wants to do is pet this dog.
Do you have a demon inside you, brother?
Yeah, thanks for the reminder, Lethalon. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I pat him on the back.
It's a lot more comfortable now that you've got a carriage drawn by a couple horses, but you do have to get out every now and then because who wants to be fucking cooped up in a carriage for 2 days? No one. You stop every now and then, you hunt, you stretch your legs, you set up camp, and it is at one of those camps, Cassandra, where you want to talk to Lannon, don't you?
I sure do.
You find him, he is starting the fire. With magic, of course, because it's always the mage's duty to start the fires when you're on camp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I see him starting the fire, and it's sort of wait until he is done with all those preparations. You don't want to startle a mage. That's just facts.
He stands up and seems satisfied with his work. The fire's going at a nice clip.
And after he's done with that, Inquisitor...
Creators!
Oh no. Oh no.
I just sort of, blink at him I have that effect on people, I'm sorry.
You're very quiet for being so tall.
I've been told that, yes.
He, kind of wipes his hand off on his robes, what can I do for you?
Well, now that we have disbanded the Grey Wardens, we will need everything at our fingertips to defeat the Archdemon.
Including a cool sword! Please let me have a cool sword!
Right! She's which brings me to my point. Literally, I need a point. I need a pointy, like your sword.
He says, wait, what?
Magic and swordplay together, like you. That would be useful to me. To us.
He stares at you in confusion. He's like, Are you asking me to train you to become an arcane warrior?
Yes, exactly.
Oh. You could have just opened with that. I would have done it. You don't have to, wrap it up in the... I know, I am also gay and like swords. I know how it works. You can just say...
I'm not used to getting things that I want.
Oh, right. Because the Cerebas thing. He says, alright, well, you'll need to make a hilt, out of... Well, mine is made out of lazurite, but you could make it out of anything you want, and the blade will deal different damage depending on which element you choose. You'll need to be trained up on the basic tenets of combat. You'll need to learn how to do fade shields, and, sure, yeah, okay. Leonard doesn't have a fucking enough to do. Sure, why not? He will also train you how to be an arcane warrior.
Excellent. Good talk. So he's that's all I wanted. Okay, goodbye.
Okay, bye. He's fucking Kunari.
Elian in the background is just impressed you managed to talk to him for that long.
It's I said a thing, and that's all I wanted to say, and why are you still standing here? The conversation is over. Goodbye.
Len just watches it go okay, well, bye. And he sits back down. Sabre, do you want to talk to Lennon at all?
Yes.
All right, well then, paint me a picture.
Okay, he's real awkward, because it's always awkward. He's going to, try to find Lannon. I'm assuming that's not hard. Alone.
Yeah, we could say literally, Cassandra just walked away. She's got it. And then she leaves, and he's okay, bye. Guess we'll just take first watch.
I just, come down and sit next to him.
And he immediately gets that awkward energy. Oh no. Why is he here?
I, like, sit in silence for, like, a full minute. Full 60 seconds. No saying anything. And then I say, look, I just really need someone to talk to, because my brother's been dead, and now he's alive, and you're, like, the only elf that I know, and if you just maybe just, like, talk to me about what's going on, I just need a distraction.
He stares at you like he does not know what the fuck you are saying.
Just rambling.
What?
I, like, look up at him exasperated. You're the only elf here on this trip.
He says, I'm not really Dalish anymore, right?
I just sort of stare at him in confusion.
I got rid of he, like, points at his face.
That doesn't mean you're not Dalish.
He doesn't seem to know what to say to that. He says, I got rid of my Valasleen because... He shakes his head, he says, I don't really know what to say to you, Sabre. It's been a kind of a rough couple days for me, too. I had to invoke the Herald of Andraste card, and I hate invoking the Herald of Andraste card. I don't even fucking worship Andraste.
I don't know what that means.
You have at least heard of Andraste.
I mean, yeah, sure, but, like, I don't understand why he's bringing this up right now.
Very, very briefly abridged version, Andraste Fantasy Jesus, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
She originally, in the original text, described her as teaming up with Shartan, who was an escaped elven slave. And Shartan I told you about Shartan briefly. He brought an army of slaves to help Andraste defeat the Tevinter Imperium. And then he was systematically erased from all the holy scriptures because he was an elf. And the Chantry wanted to destroy the Dales. And it's reasonable to understand why he would hate calling himself the Herald of Andraste.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I just sort of stare at him and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess that sounds rough. I'm sorry?
I hate it. I hate talking about being the Herald of Andraste. This is what lost me my clan. He says and like, kicks a rock into the fire.
You know, just because your clan is gone doesn't mean you're not Dalish anymore.
He says, I haven't felt Dalish in a long time.
You don't feel that we are still your kin? You don't feel something? I, like, look up at him earnestly. I feel kinship with you. Despite everything.
He says, maybe that's not a great idea. Because after Solus, he says, like, through his teeth, he's systematically destroyed any sense of Dalish pride that I had. Learning what I learned about the Elvenon, the original Elven Empire, I don't know how I can even be Dalish anymore. He says, I don't know what kind of comfort you expect from me, Sabre. Sorry, I don't think I'm the right person to talk to about this. Maybe you could try talking to your brother.
It hasn't gone so well.
He says, when we get back to Minrathous, I'll start looking up ways that maybe we can separate the Archdemon from him. It sounds impossible, but I'll look into it.
I suppose that's all I can really ask.
He kind of slouches in his spot. Yeah. Don't get your hopes up, okay?
I didn't think my brother was alive. I haven't had hope at all. This hasn't changed much of anything. I think he just sort of, like, slouches and, like, doesn't say anything. And then you hear, like, snoring.
And it's like, did he fucking fall asleep immediately? Like,
yes.
Landon is honestly kind of impressed.
He's just, like, cogged out. I think he hasn't been because Ren hasn't been sleeping. He's been trying to stay awake, like non-stop the entire time.
Aww.
So, Elian, you've been watching this, yes?
Yeah.
What has Elian been thinking?
Well, so I think, frankly, what's going on in his mind is similar to what's been going on in my mind, which is, they're actually getting on surprisingly well. Maybe there is a way to salvage this. And then he notices that you completely fall asleep sitting up, Sabre, which is impressive.
Yeah, Landon's like, damn. Wish I could do that sometimes.
Psst. Lannon.
What? He looks over at you.
I gesture him over to me, away from Sabre.
He looks confused at you, then at Sabre, then he shifts over to you.
I have an idea.
Okay.
Sabre asked me to help him.
With what?
Did I?
Yeah, you did, remember?
You did!
You asked for Elian's help.
Oh, fuck.
And this is the help you're getting.
This isn't what I meant.
Oh god, this is funny. This is gonna be fun.
I have a great idea. He is still interested in you.
Wait, what?
I think we should flirt in front of him.
What?
No, seriously. He'll get super jealous. It'll be great.
I don't know how to do that.
Cool. We're agreed.
What?
Elian just kind of just gives you a thumbs up, double thumbs up, and it's like, cool, we're good. Don't worry, I'll do all the hard work.
What's happening? Landon stares after you in abject confusion.
This is definitely not what I meant.
So you have each taken turns watching Ren. Obviously he doesn't sleep, but everyone needs to, keep an eye on him just in case archdemons happen.
Right. That was not fun.
Obviously you try to delegate it to Sabre as much as possible because, Sabre recognizes him. But that said, as you travel back to Minrathous, he's starting to, know your faces better, so you can, delegate the duty a little bit. And it is Mayveris' turn to watch him, and unsurprisingly, Ren already likes her. He's already like, you are such a good person. I want to talk to you forever. And May's like, thank you for noticing. I am. So they have been talking a quiet aside for quite a while. Because May gets along with everyone, and that includes Ren, even with an archdemon inside of him. But as you approach them to take over your shift with Ren, you catch the tail end of their conversation. And the first thing that you hear when you get close enough to hear anything is Ren saying, it does have a really high failure rate. And in any case, I don't think after what happened in Weishaupt. And she says, I know. I just thought I would ask, is all. And Ren says, are you going to tell them? And she is silent for a really long time. And she says, I guess you know. He says, I am a Grey Warden. I can sense when... And she says, I know. I don't know. Maybe. And as soon as you get close enough, she turns and sees you. And she says, oh, Cassandra, is it that time already?
As I approach, I sort of cant my head. I'm like, what high failure rate? What are you talking about?
She says, oh, I was just asking about the joining ritual the Grey Wardens have. He underwent it,
Yes.
It's such a secret ritual. I was just curious. And she pats you on the cheek.
Why would you want to know when they've been disbanded?
Good night. She walks past you.
I'm confused.
Ren just kind of watches her leave.
I just sort of stare at him like, what?
He kind of smiles a little weakly, just kind of gives you a thumbs up.
I feel like she's always like that. Always has her little secrets that she can't tell me or anyone else.
Yep. He says, and that's all that he says.
I just sort of sigh and sit down well, I guess.
So you've totally got the hots for her, right? Sorry, I should have leaned into that a little more.
I sort of stop and just stare at him like, what?
You want to get with her. I'm in constant agonizing pain, and I can still see that from 10 miles away.
Oh, it's, I hadn't realized it was that noticeable.
Oh, it's extremely noticeable, he says, right away. It's so incredibly obvious. It would take more effort for me not to notice.
I see.
You might as well just wear a sign around your neck that says, I want to fuck Mayveris.
I'm immediately just shh, don't say it so loud. I guess it is obvious. It doesn't matter if you say it, but...
Yeah, it's super incredibly obvious. I cannot emphasize how unbelievably obvious it is.
I really wish you would go to sleep.
I just want to say, for the record, I think it's a good idea. I think you should go for it and definitely talk to her about it and let her know how you feel and Do it. Mm-hmm.
That's the problem.
Why is it a problem?
The talking part is the problem.
You could just tell her?
I'm not good at that.
Same. Honestly, if Zevran weren't so much better at it than me, we probably never would have gotten together in the first place.
That does sound like an interesting story. How did you get together?
Well, the short version of the story is that he was suave enough to make up for what a dumbass I am.
That seems to make sense to me.
Like, yeah, that checks out.
She's like, yeah, okay. The thing with Mayvarys is she's very likable, and she's also a magister in high standing in Tevinter, and I'm a Kunari.
She kind of chuckles and he says, "You honestly think she cares?"
No, I don't think she cares, but certainly her people do. My people would.
I mean, she doesn't seem like the sort of person who would put a lot of stock in what other people think about her.
I know, but having that sort of power in society, people will make her care.
You make it back to Minrathous, and the carriage pulls up outside, and it's a process. Like, everyone else can pile out easily enough, but it's a process getting Ren out because his legs don't work so good. And I can see him leaning very heavily on you, Sabre, sort of staggering, and you struggling to hold up his weight. And then the front door slams open, and you hear, "Run!"
Oh no!
Zevran!
Oh god.
Okay, I'm not ready for this, my heart!
Ren looks up, and yep, standing at the far end of the pathway in the doorway to the Pavis estate is Zevran, looking like he is about to fucking cry.
Same.
He dashes down the path, and Ren actually takes a couple staggering steps forward to meet him, and Zevran catches him before he completely collapses under his own weight, and he says, "You left me behind. How could you, Ren? How could you leave me behind? I told you, before the Battle of Denerim, I told you. I would have stormed the gates of the Black City itself with you. I would have died right there with you if you'd have let me." Ren says, "I know. That's why I didn't give you the choice. I couldn't let you." Zevran hugs him hard. He buries his face in Ren's shoulder and says, "You're going to spend the rest of your life making it up to me. Do you hear me? The rest of your long, long life." Ren's breath hitches. He grips him back. "I love my Viran." He kind of sinks to his knees, and Zevran sinks down with him, and they sit there in the middle of the garden path just sobbing.
Well, that's heartbreaking.
I know!
Yeah! Oh god!
Meanwhile, Fenris wanders out behind him, and he goes up to Hawk, and Hawk is like grinning at him roguishly, and Fenris eyes him and says, "You look like shit." And Hawk kind of grins at him. He's like, "You're pretty when you're mad." Fenris like slaps him upside the head. "Don't make dumb jokes. You're badly wounded." And he like rubs the back of his head. He says, "You should know me better. I would have to be dead to stop making dumb jokes."
He almost was.
Fenris says, "Get inside. I'll clean you up." And he says, "You are pretty when you're mad. I'm always mad. You're always pretty."
This is delightful.
I think I walk over to where Zevran and Ren are, and I'm like, "I'm so glad you found each other again. We need to get inside."
Zevran sort of nods tearfully, says, "We do. We need to get him inside. I can't believe." And he just wordlessly helps Ren back to his feet. And everyone trundles inside. Dorian is waiting for you all. And he's like, "We're gonna have to double up on rooms. I only have so many guest rooms in this estate." And Lana sort of thumps him on the back. He's like, "We'll think of something. Don't worry. Oh boy, do we have some shit to get through," he says.
Understatement of the year.
So everyone gets set up. Now that Mayvarys is no longer in imminent peril, she can start healing Hawk in earnest. It's going to be an exhaustive process. Mostly, it's just going to be waiting for the mage bait to work itself out of his system, the natural way. And Ren, obviously, there's not going to be a magic bullet for Ren. he gets set up in one of the guest rooms, and Zevran basically just doesn't leave his side. He just stays there.
I'm gonna grab Zevran, though, just, for 5 seconds outside the room.
Okay.
And be like, Zevran, can I talk to you for a second?
He looks kind of reluctant, he just got his boyfriend back after 15 years.
Yeah, sure, I get it. But, this is a life or death thing.
He kind of gives Ren a look and a nod, and then he agrees and he, closes the door and turns to face you.
I look at him and I say, I never thought we'd be here. I never thought I'd see him again.
Neither did I, my friend.
But I need to warn you. He is... When he loses control...
The Archdemon.
The Archdemon.
Dorian briefed me, he says.
He needs to see people he's familiar with. We left him with Levon for maybe 5 minutes, and the Archdemon came out. I need you to promise me not to leave him alone.
He says, of course. You think I haven't seen him in 15 years. I don't want to leave his side for a moment ever again. He says, but, circumstances as they are, it might not be a bad idea if we bring Leliana over here as well. He knew her.
That's a great idea.
And he hesitates and he says, I'll need to talk to Cassandra, but there's someone else that we might think of bringing here too.
I forgot!
I look confused and I go, whatever you need, my friend. Whatever we need to keep him here and to keep him present.
He nods and he says, I'll talk to her. I will.
I slap him on the back and I go, take care of him.
And you all gather around the table.
Tight squeeze, I bet.
It's getting pretty tight. This estate is rapidly filling up with too many fucking people. And as soon as you all sit down, Dorian, you have to bring over an armchair from the corner of the living room just to have enough seats. And someone has to stand because the table isn't long enough. And Dorian is I was being serious. We're going to have to double up on beds because there's just not enough space for all of you here.
I sort of look horrified at that thought and I'm I'll just sleep outside.
I'm fine sleeping on the floor, too.
No, Cassandra, as a matter of principle, I am not letting you sleep on the floor. He says, okay, so we need to, come up with a plan. How to defeat a Blight without the Grey Wardens. Hoo boy.
Yep.
I just sort of assumed that violence is the way to do that.
Well, yes, generally speaking, Sabra, yes. That is how we are going to deal with it. However, it will be quite a lot of violence, and we'll need an army. Does anyone have any ideas on where we can get an army?
Silence. I sort of kick the floor surreptitiously. Don't look at me.
Elian's I told you.
Lennon, hesitantly raises his hand, what the fuck is the Inquisitor raising his hand for?
Right, exactly.
It's Lennon, you don't need to raise your hand. He says, we could start with King Alistair?
Is that a good idea or a bad idea? I don't know.
He says, well, he is a Grey Warden. He fought with your brother, and if anyone would be willing to bring a standing army to the cause of fighting a Blight, it would be King Alistair.
Okay, I'm down. Sounds like a good idea. Is there anybody in Tevinter we can convince? No? They're pro-Blight?
Mayveris says, well, we've convinced the Archon of the severity of the threat, and while he does command the Imperial Army, he needs consent from the Magisterium.
And we remember how well that went.
Mayveris says, it is not impossible. It is, however, extremely unlikely. Without the Grey Warden treaties, there's nothing to compel them to join us, except a consent of the Magisterium.
What about Liliana? What about the Southern Divine? Can we use her influence at all?
Dorian says she might be able to stir up what remains of the Templar Order to fight alongside of us. That's pretty much all that the Chantry has in their corner now. Ever since the Circles were disbanded, the Templar Order doesn't really exist anymore. But the Chantry does have direct command over them. That might bring us, I don't know, maybe some. He says there's also, I guess, Kunindar? Mayveris suggests we could try Kunindar?
I think I just turned to look at Cassandra.
I'm, like, shifting very visibly in my chair, like I don't want to be part of this conversation, but can't escape it.
She says, I know it is a little dicey, but this particular Arishok knew Ren Sabre. Surely, if anyone would agree to help us, it would be this Arishok, maybe?
Speaking of the Arishok, I do still have a letter he sent me.
You sure do.
And, like, I just, like, look absolute, like, I didn't want to say this at all, and I'm just sort of sigh, like, before we left, he sent someone to deliver a message requesting the Arishok, asking for me if I wanted to see him.
I think you're the only one who knows enough about the Kyun to know how weird that is.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the rest of us are like,
It's like,
yeah.
so what?
Uh-huh.
So he asked to see you. Okay, why don't you go see him?
The Arishok does not ask. If he wants something, he will get it. He must know what I am. Why would he ask me my feelings if I wanted to see him? That's not our way.
Talgan in the back says, I don't know, but I bet you know how we can find out.
Right.
Talking to him. Yeah, going to talk to him.
It's really it's the only way.
I don't want to.
Mevera says, I can't blame you for that, my dear. And if you insist on not speaking to him, we can, And she's like, you can see her, she's struggling to come up with, like, an alternate way to do this.
I'm, like, looking at both of you, and I'm like, we can find another army?
We could go through Liliana, maybe?
I hold up my hand, I'm like, I don't want to, but given the circumstances, it is probably best that I accept his offer.
Are you sure, my dear?
If it will help, I'm sure.
Well, all right.
That's 3 leads.
We're going to need as much firepower as possible. We're very early in the Blight so far, which is good. You know, there have been no cities that have been overrun by Darkspawn. There's been no casualties that we know of yet, although we might want to double check with Liliana.
There's something else we can do. I can do.
Everyone looks hopefully at you.
I can try to rally the Dalish. There's the Arlathan, a gathering, that's coming up soon.
Lennon sits up a little straighter and he says, shit, I forgot about that.
I might be able to ask for their help. I can't guarantee anything. It's not like we're an organized army, but the Dalish are formidable fighters. And we hate a Blight as much as anyone else.
Dorian says, that's a good point. And I'm sure if Lennon, and Lennon in the back's like, no, please don't ask me to go. Dorian's like, I'm sure if Lennon went with you, you know, the Dalish Inquisitor, and it's like, nah.
I like look up at Lennon and I'm like, it would help. He is Dalish.
I don't think it would be a good idea.
If anyone could help convince them, Lennon, you think they're gonna listen to me?
I don't think they're gonna listen to me either. I don't have my Valisline anymore. I'll be a flat ear to them. You understand that, right? I'll be no better than a city elf.
You say that, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try.
Ah!
Especially when they hear about Ren.
Fine. I'll go to the Arlathan. I'm gonna whine about it the whole way.
I look at him and I go, just like old times.
Oh my god, why would you bring that up now?
I shrug innocently. I'm like, what? We were both at the Arlathan together. That's all I'm saying. It's a very normal thing.
Leonard is bright red. Is like, shut the fuck up! Oh my god!
I look up at Dorian, so it's agreed. We will go and we will try to rally the Dalish.
So you all separate for the night. It was very late when you got in. You have a very informal dinner. It's basically just Mayveris just whips up whatever she has the energy to whip up because she's been on the road all day and she's very tired. But she manages to make something nice and edible and warm and filling, and then she immediately falls asleep face down on the bed. And then it is kind of quiet in the Pavis estate.
So I think he is gonna, once everything is kind of quieted down and people are figuring out where they're rooming and all that bullshit, he slips away and goes to knock on Leander's door.
As you are raising your hand to knock, you hear voices inside. And they falter when you knock, and you hear, "Come in."
I turn the handle and enter.
It's Dorian and Leander, and they are both sitting on the bed. And Dorian says, good. I was just about to head on my way out. He stands up and he says, "We were discussing the case that has been brought against me," he says, looking sideways at Leander. And Leander says, "I would like to begin the ritual as soon as possible."
We'll need at least a day or two to recoup. I mean, it's been a hard ride, but...
We should not delay too much. We have a formal hearing next week, and he hesitates, "if the ritual is successful, it will guarantee my freedom. Mages are not legally allowed to be slaves."
Alien darts a glance over at Dorian just to kind of get his reaction from that, but doesn't disagree.
Dorian seems to be in the same boat. Like, he's like, yeah, that's true. Mages are not legally allowed to be slaves in Tevinter. But obviously his hang-up isn't that so much, it's whether or not this ritual is going to work.
Yeah, or like kill him outright.
Yeah. He says, "Well, that's a good point, Leander. You're very correct. Mages are not allowed to be slaves, and if we could prove that on the floor of the Magisterium, that would be excellent." And he says, "Ellen, could I talk to you outside a moment?"
Sure.
And he sort of guides you out. And he closes the door, and he says, "Listen, the chances of this ritual working are quite low. You realize that?"
I know. I don't know a lot about magic, but...
I'd say I don't want him to get his hopes up, but he is not capable of hope. But he says, "Listen, there is another tactic that we might be able to use in the trial."
What?
I'll admit, it's not my favorite idea. But if we can prove that he still has some magical ability, that would also end the debate. If the judge and the jury saw him using magic, it would end it just as well as if he were a full-blown mage.
You want to upset him more than he already is?
I don't like the idea, he says, but I can't think of another one. If this ritual fails, what recourse does he have? If he gets upset enough on the stand, if the questions are cruel enough or hard enough for him, there will be a magical response that is invoked. That will end the debate too.
I'm not arguing with you. I think that is our only other option, but he won't agree.
He says, "That's why I think we shouldn't tell him."
You'll have to find ways to put it off, then. I can't come up with magical bullshit to to put off a ritual like this, and he was insistent last time.
We will try the ritual, he said. It's dangerous, but we've got enough mages now, and we have enough expertise in the Fade where we should be safe from the worst outcomes. He says, but if it doesn't work, I don't see another way to win this trial.
His face kind of falls at that, but, like, he can't disagree. Like, there is no good way to win it. So, should we try it before the trial, then? I mean,
we already have a proof of concept, don't we? With Magister Ronan.
I guess.
And I'd rather not do it more than once. It already leaves a bad taste in my mouth, and he is my friend.
I know you didn't want me to associate any further with the spirit, but isn't the concept of this whole thing to use a spirit to help him?
A very specific spirit under very specific magical constraints. He says, this is different. I don't want you letting a spirit into your consciousness.
But they offered to help him.
They always offer. That's what they do. He says, trust me, my friend, you've never had to deal with demons of temptation in the Fade. They always have something to offer you, and it's always very good. And the minute you say yes is the minute you sign yourself up to become an abomination.
Okay. I'm worried for him. I wouldn't suggest it otherwise.
We're all worried for him. I understand. But it's not worth your soul, my friend.
Yeah. Okay.
He pats your shoulder and he says, You can go talk to him if you want to now. The hearing is next week. We've got some time.
Okay.
And he heads back down the hallway.
I slip back into the room.
Leander is he's braiding his hair. It's getting pretty late and he likes to sleep with the braid. And when you come in, he looks at you through the mirror over his shoulder.
Have you been doing better? I kind of glance around the room for signs of frost like there was last time.
Yep, no more frost. There are some signs of water damage, but that's what happens when the room freezes. He says, yes.
I'm glad. I was worried and didn't leave it on exactly good terms.
He says, you are too concerned with my opinion of you.
Of course I am. We talked about this last time, before you slammed a door in my face.
For good reason.
Leander.
He turns around in the stool on the vanity and he says, if the ritual works, talk to me again. Until then, you have invested too much emotional interest in me. I am not capable of returning your affection.
Even if that's so, you're still a friend.
Then as a friend, take my advice. You are too invested in me.
Then I am, okay? I just am. I can't turn it off like a switch. I get invested. It's what I do.
He is sitting very still, in the vanity chair, just kind of staring at you, and like there's no way to read his face. He's tranquil. It's impossible.
I can't stop being invested. I've been worried this entire trip about you and about what's going to happen. I can't turn that off. I'm sorry that you don't think that you deserve that, but you do.
He is still staring at you, still absolutely silent, cannot read a single thing on his face. After a really, really agonizingly long silence, he says, I don't think I can help it either.
What?
He says, as you know, I am not fully tranquil. I am still capable of some limited emotion. Over the past few months of my life, that has been occupied solely by my desire to be free, of my tranquility, and of the chains that once shackled me. And then you came along. And now suddenly I can't... You're the only... He stands up, he walks past you very slowly and closes the door, and he says, get on the bed. How are you feeling, Cassandra? You decided, I assume, the night before that you would finally head to meet the Arishok.
Cassandra is, like, absolutely terrified. Like, she feels like, if I walk in there, I'm not gonna walk out. Like, that's just not, even if there's no fight, it's like, cool, you all can leave except for the Cerebus. That one stays. So, yeah, pretty not great. Not feeling awesome.
You decided in advance to approach this tactically, and you are bringing with you Mayveris Tylani, Zevran Ardai, and Telkin Dunmoral.
Mm-hmm.
Zevran because he knew the Arishok, Mayveris because you need the emotional teddy bear, probably, and Telkin because he can break faces.
Yep.
And you all take a cart out to the Magisterium, and Mayveris is looking at you very, very concerned.
I can feel your eyes on me.
Well, I'm very worried about you, my dear.
I'm also very worried about what will happen to me after this.
She says, well, if he wanted to kill you, he would just kill you, right?
That is very true.
Telgan says, if he gets too close to you, I'll just go low. Hamstring, you know.
Very reassuring.
Zevran's like, he's not going to attack. I know Sten. He's not going to attack. If he wanted to hit you, he'd just hit you.
Surprisingly, that actually does calm me down, and I'm like, okay, that's why I wanted you along. You knew him.
I won't say I was his greatest friend, but sure, I knew him.
You traveled with him. Being friends with the the Kyun doesn't really have friends.
Yes, so he explicated to us many times.
It's a concept we don't do, but yeah.
The carriage rattles to a stop. The Imperial Palace has a small suite of guest wings for visiting diplomats. You know this because you visited Liliana in one not that long ago. And this time, you are taken to a different wing by a guard who directs you in the right way and then stops short because two members of the Antam are guarding like half of the wing. There's like a choke point where like if you want to get to the air shock, you have to go down this hallway, and there's two of them right at that choke point. Mm-hmm. And one of them holds up one hand and says, "Halt, Cerebas. Where is your writ of entry?"
I definitely visibly flinch at being called that again and produce the letter.
The one on the right takes it, reads it over, and he says, "Karastan will show you the way." And the one next to him, Karastan, you presume, nods and takes you off down the hallway. And it's still the Imperial Palace, so it's still quite decadent. But obviously, it's got some Kunari touches. Like there's spears waiting outside every door.
Yep.
You love what they've done with the place. It's very Kunari. All the blinds are drawn because what's the point of having the sunlight in here? It's a security flaw. People can see inside. That's no bueno.
Yeah, they're all about military tactics. They're like, the sun? No sun allowed in here.
And eventually, the Karastan knocks firmly on one of the doors, a rather nondescript door in a hallway full of doors, and eventually it opens. Two members of the Barasat are flanking the inside of this door, and he says, "The Arishok will see you." And then he leaves.
I'm definitely, visibly, trying very hard not to, start shaking, my entire body, just trying to keep taut.
Mayveris puts a hand very delicately on your back and says, "You can do this."
I have to.
You step forward, and it's very decadent. It's very Tevinter. A lot of the finery has been stripped away because it was unnecessary and getting in the way. And sitting at a large round table is the Arishok. Dark skin, white hair held in tight braids, a close-cropped beard, wearing nice but not decadent armor. And he sees you enter, and he inclines his head, and he gestures for you to come and sit at the table, which is also not a move you were expecting.
Absolutely fucking baffled. I just sort of blink and, tilt my head what is happening? But also, you don't refuse the Arishok, so I'm okay, I guess I'll go towards the table.
Mayveris is close at your heels, as is Zevran, as is Talgan. They all sit down, and Zevran is the first to say, "Sten, you've moved up in the world." And the Arishok looks at Zevran, and he says, "I remember you." He says, "Yes, I remember you too. How have the years treated you, Zevran?" He says, "Oh, well, was in mourning for most of them. Drunk for a lot of it too." The Arishok looks at you, and he says, "I understand that many Talvashoth choose names for themselves. What name have you chosen?"
Cassandra.
"Cassandra." He inclines his head. "I wanted to see you." And then he just kind of leaves it at that.
Right. And I just sort of after a long pause, "So, your letter said, but I don't understand. Why would you want? Why not just, if you wish to speak with me, why not just take me and speak to me?"
"I am not the Arakyun. It is not my place to take you anywhere." And that is true. I'm not going to make you roll for this, Cassandra. People mistakenly assume that the Arishok is the leader of the Kyun, but that's not entirely true. The Kyun is actually ruled by a triumvirate. There's the Arishok, who's always male, who runs the Antam, the army. There's the Aragena, who's the leader of the matriarchy, who's always female. And then there's the Arakyun, who runs the priesthood, who can be either male or female. And the job of capturing an escaped Cerebas would not fall to the Arishok. That would fall to the Arakyun and the Ben Hasrath under his or her command. So when he says, it's not my place, that's literally true. It's literally not his place to capture you. It's not his role within the Kyun. Now, that said, it would be extremely easy for him to just tell the Arakyun exactly where you are, and have them come and get you that way. But apparently he hasn't, because there are no Ben Hasrath, at least, not that have immediately come to capture you. He says, I wanted to see you. I wanted to speak to you. And he hesitates and he says, are you happier now that you have left the Kyun? And that doesn't... What the fuck? What the fuck is he talking about?
My mouth is just open, like, what is happening? Like, literally, I have no fucking clue. I just stare at him, like, mouth agape, and... Excuse me?
I want to know if you are happy. Outside of the Kyun. Have you found joy in your life?
And that question, which is so fucking weird, like, I just can't help but, like, start laughing. Just like, have I found joy?
You must have left for a reason. I presume it was because you were not happy with your role. So are you happy now?
Of course I'm happy. There is no joy in being Cerebas, being constantly treated like you're dangerous, and I tap my lips like for no, like he knows.
He knows.
Yeah.
And he, to his credit, he looks like he is genuinely and intensely listening to what you are saying. Like, it seems, which doesn't surprise you to a certain extent, because if the Arishok asks you a question, it's because he wants to know the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And after you have said your piece, he answers with, good. That is good. There are some things that I wanted to talk to you about. None more important than that, however. I am glad that you are happy.
Still absolutely reeling from, like, this whole exchange, like, that was what you wanted to ask me. Just if I was happy?
There were many things I wanted to discuss. That was the chief among them. Let me tell you a quick story, Cassandra. Before I was appointed Arishok, I was close with the previous Aragena. The reason I inserted myself so closely into her life and her duties was for the sole purpose of finding... And he sort of hesitates and he says, before I was deployed with the Barasad to Ferelden, before I went on the journey that would earn me my title as Arishok, I was given over to the matriarchy and I sired a child. And ever since that day, I have been keeping tabs on her. You can imagine my surprise when I found out that she was a mage. You can imagine my further surprise when I found out that she had left the Kyun. Hey friends, Tessa here. If you're desperate to hear the next episode, chances are good that you can by joining our Discord server. We post links to all episodes in pre-release, and you can even chat with us and listen live as we record. Join us by going to bit.ly/CFCDiscord. For more information on the show, character biographies, and links to social media, head to our website, critfail.club or critfailclub.com. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. Crit Fail Club does not advertise at all, so if you like what you hear, tell a friend who might also like it, make a post on social media about it, or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Full episodes are available on our YouTube channel, bit.ly/CFC channel, or wherever you get your podcasts.